So in the previous videos, we implement the event-driven programming. So the most important thing, we need to define our event handler class. Because those event handler class are closely using each component in the GUI. So most of the time, we define the handler class using the inner classes. And also, like you see, sometimes in your GUI, you may have few event handler class you need to define. So since we have so many event classes need to be defined, so we think about we can try to simplify the syntax for each inner class. So in this video, we will show you, instead of to write the event handler using the inner classes, we will try to simplify that syntax to go using the anonymous inner class. And also at the end, I want to show you what is the lambda expression. Actually, the lambda expression is now we use most how to define the event handler. So our event handler classes we always define as the inner classes. So each inner classes, they still have their own class name and the method implemented. So in order to shorten that inner classes, we can create the anonymous inner classes. So the anonymous inner classes, on the other hand, is we just make our inner classes definition and a declaration shorter without the class name defined. So we see the example how they will do that. Actually, just see this one. This one we just use the regular inner class to define our enlarged handler class. So here in the inner classes, you have the class name and you have the implement, your interface's name, and your method name. So then after you define this inner class, you need to create an object to register to the source object. So when we replace an anonymous inner class for the inner class, actually one thing is we don't have the class name anymore. So on the other hand, here you will see this one become the anonymous inner class. We make the new still have the new. But you see, since you don't have this class name, so we can remove everything. Okay, so that's why they cross out the class name and the class keyword and even the implements keyword. So we just new this event handler because we all implemented from the event handler. So then after you new like this, right? So then one thing is we need to have a default constructor because we want to create an object. So that's why this parenthesis is followed by the event handler. So this parenthesis is kind of called the default constructor. Then you still have your braces, have the handle method to override. But afterward, don't forget, because your new constructor within this parenthesis, right? Okay, so that's why here, don't forget your set action. You still have your open parenthesis. Then don't forget you have your close parenthesis here. So then just within here, you still have your handler method braces and your event handler outer braces. So within your event handler, you will add the parentheses for the default constructor. So that's the syntax to use the anonymous classes for the event handler. Let's see an example how to use anonymous inner class to add the listener to the button. So we're just using a simple GUI because sometimes maybe your GUI have many source objects. They can respond to users' input differently. So you see here, when I click the new button, they have the press new display in the console. So when I click open, we will display process open in the console. So that's why I see different buttons, they will respond differently. So at the so in this program, at least we need to have 4 event handler. Okay, so now we will see how to use an anonymous inner class to make the syntax a little easier. So of course, in this GUI, the first thing we need to add 4 buttons one by one. So we see here is the source code. So we're just using a HBox in the scene. So here we will add all the buttons into the HBox. So your GUI, on the GUI part, we will see here is our display. You see your HBox in the scene. So then we set the primary stage. So after you have the GUI display, right? So you will see here, actually when we register the event handler into each button, I just need to use the anonymous inner class. So that's the source object. I'm using the set on action to add the event handler object. We need to have the new event handler implement from the event handler. So then here is the default constructor code. So in the braces, after your event handler, we will have a one handler method. But this handler method, we still implement and write that in the formal syntax. You have the action event passing to the parameter. So then your console display the process new for the new button, process open for the open button. So then the same thing for the save button and your print button. So you have 4 anonymous inner class. So the same thing here, after you finish this program, you run like this, right? Can you tell me, in this Java file, total how many classes created? Okay, 1 class for sure, right? But even here, you will see this one we call anonymous inner class. Even they don't have class name, but they are still created class. So actually this program, this Java file, total you have 1 anonymous inner class, 2, 3, and 4 anonymous inner class create, and 1 outer class. How do I know that? The same thing like earlier we say. In order to know how many classes you create, you need to go to your source file to see that. So in your source file under your project directory, you need to go to the bin. So under your package. So this one is all the 5 classes they created. So the first one is the outer class anonymous handler demo class. So for each anonymous inner class, remember they don't have class name. So they just using the outer class name, add a $sign. So then 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's why in one Java file total they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 classes created. So this is anonymous inner class example. Just like earlier we say, sometimes in your GUI you have so many event handler classes you need to implement, right? Even anonymous inner class make our statement a little shorter, but still not enough. So now most of the time you see a lot of time they using the lambda expression. So lambda expression is a new feature since Java 8. So then they kind of using the anonymous inner class, but with a concise syntax even shorter. So we start from the anonymous inner class will help you to easier to see how the lambda expression came from. So the lambda expression actually we care about is, you can see, since we don't care about the class name, and also the event handler always is implemented by the event handler, right? There always is the subclass from the event handler. So that's why we don't have to add that. And also the new, we also skip that. So actually, you see the most important thing is how should we process the user input in the handle method, right? So that's why lambda expression only work on the interfaces. They only has exactly one abstract method they need to implement. So since you only have one abstract method you need to implement, right? So I even don't care the method name anymore. So right, so they only care about this is the parameter list. So then the method body, how to implement that method. So that's why here you will see the lambda expression, they only have the E. So this E actually means the parameter list variable. Then they're using an arrow symbol. So this arrow symbol followed by a braces. So this braces is how you will implement that method. So here lambda expression we care is the E, arrow, and how you implement the method. So to be more precisely about the basic syntax for the lambda expression, actually they are like this. Your parameter, if they only have one parameter, I really don't care about the parentheses. So that's why earlier you have the E. So if only have the E, you want to have the parentheses or without parentheses, either way. So the most important thing, you have the arrow. So then the arrow, if you only have one expression, then you just have one expression. However, if you have multiple expression, right? Multiple statement, so then make sure you will put the braces and the semicolon. So that's show you the same example earlier we show you. If we have this 4 button, we want to process those event handler in the lambda expression, how we will write that. So you know, even we're using lambda expression, but the GUI is still the same, right? So that's why you have 4 buttons. So you can see the first part, GUI is still the same. But now within the lambda expression, each button I register, I only have one line I finish. So like earlier we say, they care about 3 parts for the lambda expression: parameter list, arrow, and how you implement your method. So the first one, you can have all the parameter lists, including the data type in the variable name. So in the parentheses, so arrow. So since you only have one statement to do, so system.out.print, then I finish. So don't forget here, okay? So you have lambda expression 1 part, 2 part, 3 part, you finish. So then put in the parentheses. So or you can have no data type, I only have the variable name. So the first part, arrow never change. So then one statement, finish. Since you only have E, you can without the parentheses. So then here, even you only have one statement, you decide to put them in the braces. That make you see more clear. But if you put in the braces, don't forget you need to add the semicolon inside the braces after your statement. Okay, so that's, you have different way. They all using the lambda expression. They just need to make sure you have 3 parameter list, 2 arrow, 3 your method implementation. And the lambda expression only work for your abstract method, only have exactly one to implement from the interfaces.